This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Good evening. Welcome to the Easthampton City Council special meeting for June 24th, 2026. The meeting tonight is being recorded and broadcast by e-media on Charter Channel 193 and live streaming on their webpage, easthamptonmedia.org. Councilors and participants in this meeting are gathered hybrid on the order extended until June 30th, 2027, allowing us to do so. I remind both the members of the City Council and the public participating remotely to remain muted until recognized by the City Council President. Also, for the members of the public, please remove your camera for the duration of the meeting unless you are participating in the public speak time or the public hearing. Thank you. This meeting is now called to order. Mary Ann.
J.P. Kwasinski.
Here.
Connie Denham.
Here.
Tamara Smith.
Here.
Felicia Jazak.
Here.
Tom Peak.
Here.
Jonathan Schmidt.
Here.
Amanda Newton.
Here.
Kayam Jamron McQuaid. Nathan Markey.
Here.
Thank you. I will take a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Chair Peak.
All right. Hi, everybody. We are finally talking about the fiscal year 2027 budget. So this budget has been the source of a great deal of deliberation over the last few months, not just in these chambers, but also in the public sphere, as the overall size of the budget was largely determined by the success or failure of an override vote. So upon the passage of that vote, and after, I think, I'm going to guess here, about 25 hours of meetings related to this in one sense or another, the Finance Committee did vote to make a few reductions to the proposed budget. None of them are groundbreaking, but I think that there are just a few points where we did realize we could potentially realize some savings. So just to sort of, for those who weren't at that meeting, to sort of briefly summarize some of the things we reduced, a lot of it came down to asking department heads to reduce or eliminate training or professional development that was not necessary for the maintenance of certifications or licenses. We did reduce several $1,000s from the technology budget in asking that the city discontinue our subscription to the flock cameras, and we did reduce. There was a few other cuts. We did reduce the hours for the sustainability coordinator down from a full-time to basically a part-time position, with the idea of the rest of that position being covered with a grant. So all told, that came out to about $51,000. It's a small share of the total budget, but I think that it sort of underscores, at least my opinion, and I think the opinion of the rest of the council, that while it is very expensive to run a city, that there's not a tremendous amount of expenditure within this budget that could be reduced without it leading to a substantial reduction in the services that members of the public and visitors to the city receive. So with that in mind, this is the budget that we have to present this evening. I do just want to say that I think that when it comes to being conscious of the budget and being conscious of the fiscal position of the city, that I do think that there is work that remains to be done, but I don't think that all that work necessarily is something that can be done within the confines of a municipal budget. You know, I think there's a lot of suggestions that people have made over the course of this process for, you know, investments that the city could potentially make that could save us money in the long run, or ways that the city could partner with other communities or consolidate services in ways that I think these are all things that we need to continue to look at and find ways to find those ongoing savings. But I do think that in terms of what is in this budget, with what we are legally able to do as a council, as part of our review of the budget, there isn't anything left in here that I would feel very comfortable cutting. So that's my position on it. I'm prepared to make to start making these motions to approve the budget, but I assume we'll want to allow the public to speak first and councilors as well. But I don't know that there's much that I can say about this that has not already been said. I do just think one thing I just want to point out. Yesterday we met to send this to make these final motions and make these recommendations to the full council. Due to sort of an administrative mix-up, the motions document that we usually read from was not available at the time that the meeting began. So we did vote to basically continue this, to move this to the full council without a recommendation. I can't speak for my colleagues, although I hope that they agree with me, but just for what's worth from myself, that was not in any way a sign of my discomfort with the budget. It was just the fact of just the necessity that the actual motions we wanted to move forward, getting all of those calculations into the proper format just wasn't ready at that time. So they are now ready, and I'm prepared to make those motions as soon as we hear from everyone that we want to hear from.
Great, thank you, Chair Peak. Before we go through each section, so general government, public safety, schools, etc., do any city councilors have any questions at this time? Or you all have the right to make amendments that the council would discuss, but we can talk about those in each of those various sections. But at this time, are there any general questions that councilors have?
Just
Councilor Kuzinski.
first of all, a process question, and that was what the public for the public hearing, will we be hearing from the public initially and then for each section?
Yes.
Is that your plan?
Yes.
Okay, good, just so everyone is all on the same page. That's basically the process question I
Yep.
have.
So I don't see any questions. In terms of the public, just so you know, you're welcome to comment now, but for each section, you will have the opportunity to pose a question. So you're welcome to make comment now, just so people have that opportunity, and you can also make comment in each of the sections. But are there people who would like to make comment at this time? Great. If so, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Don Pouland, I live on Ashley Circle. I read in the Gazette this weekend that the mayor does not like to be micromanaged. I don't blame him. Micromanagement is a bad approach. So I dug into the macro numbers of the city over the last 5 years. And I'm hoping that this is legible for you all, because it cost me a little money to get it printed. But this green line that's going up like a hockey stick is 5 years of spending by the city of Easthampton that has increased 44% in 5 years, 44%. You might ask, inflation's been very high over those 5 years. What's inflation been? Inflation's been 22%. So Councilor Peak, I respectfully disagree with you. I don't believe the city needs double inflation to run. What's our population been over the last 5 years? We've actually decreased in our population by 1.1% from 16,000 residents to 15,851. And how many children do we educate in this city? Well, if you go back 20 years, we had 1,800 students enrolled. Going back 5 years, we had 1,450 students. We now have 1,340 students per DESI, not my numbers. That's an 8.3% reduction. So double inflation for spending, reduction in the number of people that we serve. And I will remind this council that 80% of the citizens of Easthampton did not vote for this override. 19% actively voted no. 61% didn't participate. Why do people not participate? Because they don't feel engaged, they don't feel important. 20% of the citizens of Easthampton voted for this override, and your obligation as a council, and your obligation, Mr. Mayor, is to govern for all of the citizens of Easthampton, not the loudest 20% that is backed by outside money. I appreciate you listening to me or considering my comments. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Anyone else in the room? Great. I forgot to mention, you'll have 3 minutes for comments. When you have 30 seconds remaining, you will hear an alert. And when your time is up, there will be a second alert. So please wrap up your thoughts at that time. So please state your name and address for the record.
Kathy Wazinski, Overlook Drive. I just want to make some basic statements about the whole process. It has been full of missteps. The budget that was provided to citizens was full of errors. I do not still see a corrected budget. Records that were requested of the city were never provided. And few, if any, suggestions made by citizens were even apparently taken seriously. The mayor said, if we don't need to take the whole 6.9 million, we won't. That appears to be an attempt to garner yes votes because there's no reasonable reduction in this budget. And so scooping that whole 6.9 million from the citizens of Easthampton who can barely afford it is a tragedy. And you guys, once again, have not done your due diligence and attempted to manage this budget so it does not go out of control. It continues to be out of control, and we have unfortunately failed the most vulnerable citizens in our community.
Thank you. Anyone else? Great. Great. Please state your name and address for the record.
Mike Caribou, Line Street. In regards to this budget, it's totally inadequate in regards to transparency. The information in this budget is just smoke and mirrors. The information isn't there. As was mentioned earlier, the corrections weren't done timely, weren't done so that the information provided to you folks is accurate and up to date. I'm hoping in the future that budgets that come before the city council will be broken to the point where you can identify every line. So you can go through that as councilors responsible for the money of the citizens of Easthampton and veto the line, remove the people, remove the cost. I give them credit for $53,000 approximately was cut at the last finance. So on a 6.9 million, you cut 53. I know you, again, as I said last night at the meeting, there were no personnel except for the one person discussed or removed. And as I said last night too, that the two budgets that were the good budget, the bad budget, both budgets had personnel cuts. I'm hoping to see those tonight because if not, then it was just, again, smoke and mirrors. You need to have transparency where the DPW, I went to the meeting the other night, theirs budget was pretty informative, but again, that too could still be expanded. So I tell you folks that you need to demand, as a city council, the mayor, everybody works for you folks. And you folks get elected just like he does. So you need to be responsible for the citizens of this city/town and be due diligent when it comes to spending their money.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room like to say anything regarding just general comment? Seeing none. Anyone online, would you like to, so I see Chris, so please state your name and address for the record.
Chris O'Connor, Ashley Circle. I'd like to just underline what's been shared with you so far, is that the expectation should be that you're not just looking at the crumbs of the budget, but you're looking holistically and thinking holistically and helping, obviously, the mayor to what the strategy is and how do we downsize this as obviously our population's going down as well as other things, and like how do we right size this? That kind of critique and strategic thinking is needed from the whole council members and thinking outside of the box. It's just, we need more from you. And like it's been stated, you've been elected to represent us and we're expecting you to hear it. If you need ideas, there are people coming up here and talking about things that maybe we should be meeting and giving you ideas if they're not available in your own minds. And so I'm just encouraging you is like, this is needed going forward. This is not going to be, a walk in the park, even with the override passing. So I encourage you, if there's something that these people can help with conversations, please reach out because we're trying to get everyone to be more participant as well on your side of the fence. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else online have anything they'd like to say? All right, seeing none. We'll go ahead and we'll start going through each section. Oh, sorry.
Just a general question.
Councilor Kwasinski?
In reviewing the situation, we had a vote. Yes, people won. And the question I have is, the policy would be to move forward. The expectation would be, I understand that there's a recount, and I don't know how that plays into this whole scenario, how a recount plays in, and how the revenue is defined as revenue, and wanted to be sure we were on solid ground in moving forward, because revenue and expenditures have to equal. We have to have a balanced budget. So I just was hoping we could get some explanations about that. I don't know if staff is available, but.
Right. Chair Peak?
Sure. Here's my understanding of it. If anyone wants to correct me, I'm always learning. But no budget is really final until the tax rate recap. In the case that there were to be some revelation that in fact we needed to reconsider the results of that election, which, just to be on the record, I do not think is going to happen. But in that case, then obviously we would have to then the mayor would then have to address the fact that out of the money that we have authorized him to spend, he will not be receiving all of it, and that will require the city to make some cuts. If I could actually make a more global statement there, I just think it's important that we, because all of this goes, we've had so many conversations about this, that we actually discuss what we as a city council are legally doing right now, because I think that there's a lot of conversations you can have around fiscal policy, and not all of them are precisely what's going on right now. What happens is that the mayor comes to the city council with their plan for how they intend to spend money by department and by line item each year. And then the city council authorizes those expenditures, or we cut them, right? So what we are saying right now is that should this budget pass, that the department heads are authorized to spend funds up to the amount that's within those line items on those areas, because we've authorized that. Now, if there were some massive revenue shortfall, say through something like the scenario you were describing, then obviously they wouldn't have all that money. They'd have to make those cuts. But that doesn't change the fact that we authorized it. That doesn't mean, if we authorize it, that doesn't mean then that the mayor has the ability, like, if there was something, same with if there was a sudden cut in state aid, like, the mayor at that point would be responsible to make the reductions to make sure that the budget remained balanced. But I think that what we are really talking about is whether we're authorizing people to spend a certain amount of money. And to that end, one other thing. I do think that one thing that I've heard from a lot of people, kind of across the ideological spectrum, but throughout this thing, is that there's this desire for more information about sort of how our processes work. And I do broadly sympathize with that, but I do also think that there's a certain level of detail you don't want in a municipal budget. Like, in a municipal budget, I do want to authorize a department head to spend a certain amount on personnel, right? Because what exactly their personnel needs are might shift throughout the year. I do not want to be responsible for personally authorizing the salary of each municipal employee, because it's just too shifting for that. Like, there's a reason why it makes sense to keep things broad. Now, does that mean that the public should not have other methods of finding that information? Like, no, I've long been a proponent of something like an open budget, which some communities have implemented, and which I hope we can get to someday, or like an open checkbook type thing where you can actually just log on and monitor some of these expenditures in real time. There's technology out there, not all of it's perfect, but it's something that I hope we do get to someday. I hope that when we update our municipal finance systems this year, that it helps to make a lot of that information more accessible, and it makes and more easy to do. And I'm optimistic and hopeful that is the direction that we're heading in. But in terms of the actual budget, like as a legal document, I do think that there's a reason why it's important that we are careful with the level of detail we go into, because I do want to afford the department heads a certain amount of freedom to adjust to the situation and use that money that we provided that it's within those parameters, to use it in the way that they think is the most appropriate given the changing situations. Because we know that the world is not going to look the same in a year as it is right now. It's not going to look the same in a quarter as it is right now. And so that I just do think that, like, there's something like that. I just think it's important. Like, I think that there's a reason why we talk about this at the level of detail that we do. And I think that there's a reason why this process is set up like it is, because what we're really doing is saying, here's how much our mayor, like it or not, I personally have some challenges with it, but we have a strong mayor form of government. Like, this is our ability to set initial limits, is to say, within this budget, within these parameters, this is what you can spend. And then beyond that, if there's anything else, if there's anything that doesn't fit into here, it has to specifically come back to the council. We need to have those conversations. That's all.
Councilor Smith.
While I can appreciate, Councilor Peak, that you think the recount won't pass, I haven't heard what the plan is if it does.
I think sorry.
I didn't hear it in your answer.
Sure.
If it was.
Chair Peak?
If somehow it were not to pass, then the mayor would be forced to make a large amount of cuts in order to make sure that the amount of money that he's spending is equal to the amount that our revenues would be.
Councilor Smith?
So if that recount happens after June 30th,
Mhm.
what would the timing be? Because I guess what I'm having a problem with understanding is if that recount is not done prior to June 30th, the only official budget that we have the money for would be the limited budget. And so I'm having a hard time understanding what would be the ramifications for city council if we say, let's pass the big budget, when in actuality ends up being the little budget. And I would just like to understand those parameters better.
Chair Peak?
Yeah, so the mayor's under no obligation to spend the entirety of the amount that we appropriate. So if we spend this, which to the best of our knowledge right now is a balanced budget, and then in the future, due to the circumstance that you're describing or any other circumstance, let's just say, for example, I was saying a massive cut in state aid could be another one, or a global economic crisis, or, there's any number of things. If for whatever reason there were a shift that would mean that the city comes to a position where they feel like they are not going to get the level of revenue that they initially forecast, then it would be the mayor's duty to make the cuts that would need to be made to make sure that he only spends up to the amount of money that he believes he's going to have. But it wouldn't require anything of us. We're just authorizing spending up to this amount. And that's not true just for this scenario, that's for any scenario. If there was a sense that there was going to be a big revenue shortfall, that doesn't require the city council to come in and then reduce the spending that we authorize. It would just, there's an obligation on the city's part to do that. And just one other point, that, as I stated, the budget isn't really, we have to submit a budget, a balanced budget per state requirements this week. But the budget is never really truly final until the tax rate recap, which occurs in the fall. So
November.
Usually November. So it's like we would submit this, and then if some exogenous circumstance were to force the city to massively recalibrate the amount of spending that it's doing for any reason, that would then be something that the mayor's office would be required to figure out. And I'm sure we would be welcome to, give our thoughts on that, but in a strong mayor form of government, this is, in terms of this money, this is really our last say on it.
Councilor Kwasinski?
Just to follow up along that line for 1 second, and then I have another question. For Councilor Peak or for anyone, if we were to pass a budget based on the presumption that the override is not challenged, or that the challenge will fail, or the recount will fail, and then we were to find out that the opposite were the case, then we will have abdicated as a council, my guess is, all of our ability to make any changes to that budget directly. That would seem to be a reasonable conclusion. We will have handed it over to the mayor and said, well, you are authorized to this level. And I guess if you find out that its level is here, then you'll make all the decisions and changes. So just as long as we all recognize that we are handing over and abdicating, I think, a responsibility to come up with a balanced budget that may or may not be in question depending on who you talk to or what perspective. And I think that's an accurate statement. I would like to follow up with Mary Ann as the registrar and clerk coordinator to ask when her expectation might be that a recount would be completed so that those figures would be known. Is there an approximate date? Is that?
I believe that they're meeting on Friday, is that correct? To set the date for so would you like to expand
Yes.
on that?
Board of Registrars is meeting Friday at 4:30 to set the date and time of the recount. The state has said that we have to give 3 days' notice in writing by mail, and you can follow up with email as well. So We originally were, when we thought the Board of Registrars could meet earlier in the week, I originally thought maybe it would be next Monday or Tuesday, but I think it's looking more toward Wednesday or Thursday now, July 1st or 2nd. And I did have the mayor's office reach out to our city solicitor about if it's not, if the recount does not take place before June 30th. And they said try to have it by then, but trying to get everyone to meet is, yeah. So we'll know when it's gonna be
On Friday.
on Friday after they meet at 4:30.
After they meet at 4:30, great. Chair, do you have another follow-up question, Counselor
Well,
Kwasinski?
so it sounds like the rest of this fiscal year is not likely, no one's holding their breath, is that it's for the recount to be completed by that point. Has there been any consideration of an alternative budget proposal that we do have the authority, in my opinion, to pass that is based on funds, like a 1/12 budget or a budget that would be without the override? And then would we be able to look back and make any changes upward should the override come through? So I guess it's a three-part question for you.
Chair Peak.
I don't know my ability to answer all of those questions, but I just want to, because I feel like I've said this like 3 times now, and so I'm going to say it, I think, a 4th time, and after that, I think I'm done saying it. Every single year, the revenue that the city brings in is an estimate. We do not know what it is going to be. There are a number of factors. We do not know how many people are going to pay their bills and their taxes. We do not know what level of taxable spending is going to occur in the city. Every year, we pass our budgets with the state legislature having abdicated their responsibility to pass a balanced budget by the end of the fiscal year, as they have failed to do for many, many, many years, leaving us to essentially guess what they intend to dole out to municipalities. So in every single sense, the amount of money that we put in as our revenue for the balanced budget is always a guess, and it's never perfectly accurate. Now, on a good year, and most of the years I've been on the council have been good years, we've collected more revenue than we projected because we tend to be relatively conservative with this. And, in some years, that has been easier to do than others. But like, there's the idea to me of saying, like, you realize that when we make these budgets, like, there's departments that are making important decisions about contracts that they're going to sign with personnel as a result of these things. Now, yes, if it turns out that for any reason, I have to say any reason because I just want to make this clear, I think that the odds that when you actually look at the kind of, like, this recount, just based on my knowledge of recounts and of voting machines and having done a lot of these things, I think that there's a lot of other things that are significantly more likely to be things that could happen that could force the city to recalibrate its spending partway through the year than this recount. In terms of just things that could theoretically happen, there are a lot of more likely things. And there's also things that could end up leading to there being more revenue. But the idea to me, like, we right now are going, what I would like to do is I would like to move forward with the budget that we have based on our current best idea of what we think this revenue picture is going to be. And then when things come up that we did not expect, not if, when, because things will. Some of them will be good, some of them will be bad. If it's anything like, the last few years, we might get a couple more bad than good. But when these things change, we will make the adjustments that we have to make like we do every year. But I don't think that the idea of this sort of long shot Hail Mary recount attempt being thrown in here is actually puts us in a different situation than the situation that we have been in every single year since we became a city, which is that at the start of it, we make an estimate of the revenue. We talk about that estimate of the revenue in finance. We then authorize the mayor to spend a certain amount of money based on the mayor's initial recommendations and the reductions that we see are appropriate. And then as the year goes on and things come up, we remain in a dialogue and we figure out the best way to handle that.
Madam President, to respond to.
Counselor Kwasinski?
I happen to personally agree that I think your perception of it being a Hail Mary is correct. I think the recount numbers are sufficient enough that it won't be an issue. Usually you see recounts much closer, but that is not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is a certification of an official vote, and we know when that will take place. What I will point out, to just make a little bit of a distinction with what you've said about the knowledge that we go into, we've always gone in not knowing, well, how much is the state going to give us for this or that, or that. It's always been extraneous issues that we've had, we don't know. What we're talking about here, I think, is different because it's what we raise ourselves, our fees, our revenue, our taxes, that is the difference. And that, I think, is a difference between the state not knowing and what we know about our own situation. That being said, I have no further questions.
Chair Peak, do you want to say something?
Agree to disagree. I just think that when it comes down to it, in terms of our legal requirement here and in terms of what this actual budget process is for, I think that, you know, that, I mean, because we also raised for ourselves from, you know, our various, like local option taxation when it comes to food and beverage, when it comes to food, cannabis, you know, all of this stuff, parking tickets, like all of these are also a thing that we raise for ourselves, and those are notoriously difficult to predict. So I just don't think that in terms of like what we're here to do, I don't feel that there's actually a meaningful distinction. I think that we should make our, I think that we should go forward. If there's things that people think are inappropriate amounts to spend, we can have those conversations, but past that, like, I think that the idea of anything further is it's not something that would get my vote.
Great. Auditor Patel, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Auditor Patel, can you please just provide a little bit more context for the public about the tax rate recap that will happen in November and kind of that impact and how that shapes the budget?
Yeah. So expense side budget gets finalized by June 30th. Revenue gets finalized during the tax rate recap. If there any reason that we can't come up with the revenue equivalent to the budget approved before June 30th, either we have to find a funding source or we have to cut the budget. Mm-hmm. And that's when the budget gets balanced. Both the numbers are estimated numbers.
Mm-hmm. So at this time, what we are passing or discussing, if it passes, is really an estimation, and then it will have a full picture of kind of what that looks like in November when the tax rate recap occurs.
Yes.
Yes. Great. Thank you. Councilor Marquis.
Yeah, I'm learning municipal budgets. I'm a relatively new city councilor, so I'm learning kind of as I go with as much research as I possibly can get in. And I just want to say that I agree wholeheartedly with Councilor Peak's take. And I don't believe we would be having this lengthy conversation about this topic if a recount wasn't on the horizon. That being said, what knowledge I do have of elections and a 3.7, 3.8 percentage gap would be almost unique in the vote change as far as the override is concerned. So I agree with Councilor Peak on moving forward with the budget this evening.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none. Councilor Peak, why don't we go ahead and start with section 1, general government.
Okay. So, general government. I'm going to refrain from just doing too much editorializing between those because we've discussed this all at length, and I just think it's best to just make the motions.
If there's questions, we can
We can
ask them
certainly,
when we
yeah.
get to discussion.
Okay.
And also, the public will have, actually, you might want to provide a little bit of context before the motion, because I have to give the public the opportunity to speak.
Sure.
So if you could just say a little bit about what they entail, and then we'll have to.
I'll do my best. It's from memory, so if I forget anyone, particularly in general government, if I forget anyone's departments, please forgive me. So general government is sort of most of the central administrative functions that you you see within this building. So, yeah, you have, okay, city council, mayor, city attorney, licensing, assessor, auditor, treasurer, central purchasing, technology, collector, human resources, city clerk, elections and registrations, planning, and building operations. So the appropriation for that comes in at $3,462,232.44. Most of that's coming from the general fund, but there's $725,000 coming from water sewer enterprise, $15,000 coming from the parking fund.
Any comment from the public regarding general government? Please state your name and role for the city.
Salem Derby, I'm the mayor. And I wanted to just address something, because there was a small cut in the licensing board line, and I just wanted to give some historical perspective, because I feel like it's important. So in your 2027 budget you have in front of you, the Finance Committee recommended reducing the licensing board clerk stipend from $1,500 to $1,200, and I want to make sure you have the full history before that reduction stands. The licensing board clerk function has been separately compensated since FY 2017, when it carried its own budget line under Department 1220. Over time, it was absorbed into the mayor's office administrative salary, which reached $92,500 per year, with no separate recognition. When the current position was created at $45,000 a year, the stipend became the only mechanism acknowledging this extra work. In 2021, the City Council Finance Committee debated a $10,000 supplemental appropriation for this function. The debate was not about whether the work warranted compensation, because it did. The debate was about amount. Councilor Rist proposed $5,000 for the stipend. Councilor Gomez suggested $7,500, and Councilor Coniff was undecided. The matter was continued without resolution, and the city, at the time, the city auditor had recommended restoring a separate budget line for this function, as opposed to having it built into the position. The current executive assistant job description does not include licensing board duties. The stipend is the only formal compensation for 18 documented categories of year-round licensing work: liquor licenses, auto licenses, entertainment licenses, ABCC compliance, after-hours availability to licenses, and more. The mayor's office voluntarily reduced its travel and training budget by 50%, which is significantly more than $300. The one reduction this council made that lands on a specific employee performing documented statutory work is a $300 cut to someone earning $45,000 a year, at a time when the council's own predecessors were debating whether $5,000 or $10,000 was the right figure. I'm asking the council to restore the stipend to $1,500 and to open a proper discussion about whether that figure, established years after the 2021 debate concluded without resolution, reflects the actual scope of this work. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment?
Mike Caribou, Line Street. Can you explain the $725,000 going from the water and sewer to the general, to the mayor's fund? I thought enterprise was for water and sewer functions and water and sewer functions only. So maybe you can explain how the department is sending $725,000 to the, I'm gonna say general fund, but you know what I'm talking. So if you can explain that as to why that happens?
Yeah, sure.
Chair Peak?
I can do my best, and if the mayor wants to elaborate, I'm sure he's got some things. But essentially, there's a chargeback because there's a lot of things, you know, to give an idea, like the payroll processing, HR, various like central government services that the enterprise side of the budget relies upon. There's a similar thing with the school where, you know, there's actually also a similar thing between state and the local governments and the state, where there's these chargebacks where we say this one part of the government used services because they didn't have, like Enterprise doesn't have their own HR department, Enterprise doesn't do their own hiring, Enterprise doesn't do their own benefits administration, Enterprise doesn't, when Enterprise has an IT issue, they go to central IT, and so on. And so the idea is that there's the city has the Board of Public Works meets with the city and they negotiate a chargeback amount that gets sent to general government, basically in compensation for the time and effort that goes towards supporting water and sewer enterprise, but that, to provide services in support of those operations.
Great. Thank you. Please state your name and address.
Don Poole and Ashley Circle. I didn't think I'd say this tonight, but I agree with everything Councilor Peak has said so far, with the exception of the size of the overall budget. So last time I'll get up tonight. General government, along with every other department, in my eyes, there should be a compromise that brings people together in this town, which would be the mayor takes 50% of the override amount, and then I see the superintendents here tonight, the mayor and the department heads find the adequate cuts to balance the budget. I can understand that finding that 50 grand was probably painful, but you're not going to get anywhere without some cuts. And if no one was troubled by the numbers I presented earlier, I think that's a problem in and of itself as to how much this budget has grown. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Anyone else in the room? All right, seeing none. Sam Hunter online, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi all, Sam Hunter, 8 Mayor Street, Easthampton. I watched the FinCom meeting that the mayor was referring to. I was really disturbed by this conversation. This is a $1,500 stipend for somebody to do work that is not a part of their job description. And I think what Evan should have done was to just say, okay, I'm not doing that job anymore. It's not in his job description. So I would also like to see it restored. And also generally, I just want to remind everybody, in the school department, we cut $900,000 from our school budget. And if we go back to the non-override amount, that means laying off 45 teachers who just got laid off, and then many of them were rehired. So this is not, I'm disappointed a little bit in the direction of this conversation, because it feels to me like there's a small minority of folks in town who have been kind of giving you all a lot of trouble. And I get it, I'm on the school committee, the same thing happens to us sometimes, but you can't let these folks run these meetings. That's all. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Markey.
I agree with the mayor and Sam Hunter. I think that cutting $300 from the stipend for the licensing is wrong, and I'd like to see it reinstated as well. I don't know how exactly I'd make an amendment to add that money back. I know we don't really add money, but I would like to see it reinstated as well.
Any other? Councilor Peak.
I want to say this first of all, that in terms of a matter of process, I've not yet seen a situation where a cut was made in Finance Committee and then that funding was restored in the full council, but I don't believe that there's anything preventing us from doing so. It's just that that cut was a recommendation that came from the full council. So if the council were to vote that, I assume that I would just add $300 to the amount in the final appropriation. And just for the record, I don't know where everyone else is on this, but just for the matter of transparency, this was I think the only, well, no, that's not, this was one of only a few cuts that wasn't unanimous. I felt that it was not really appropriate. So I did vote against this one, and would, if somebody wanted to make such a motion, I'd probably back it.
I'd make the motion, but I'm not exactly sure how I should word it.
I think what you would.
I'm sorry for speaking out of turn. by the way.
Yeah, I think what you would do is you would make a motion to restore the original, a line item to $1,500 and, Counselor Kwasinski, but hang on one second before Counselor Kwasinski.
I had two issues. One, to stay on track with what's being discussed, I think we might have to adjust the revenue section. I'm not sure. We could consult with the auditor about that, about the technicalities, since I think one change to one section must be balanced on the other side. So technically, that's, I think, correct. However, I also wanted, before we came to conclusion on that, wanted to say, in response to the public speaking, it was my point that we follow a procedure that's the legal procedure, that's the procedure that we have established as the right and correct procedure, and that we dot our i's and cross all our t's, just like we would dot our i's and cross our t's with regard to a $300 change, that we dot our i's and cross our t's with regard to a $6.9 million override, and whether or not that has been certified or not. That's why I raised those questions, not being driven by any small group or any group or any individuals, but to be sure that we do it right.
Any other comment from counselors? Mayor Derby?
I can just address the balancing piece. So since this is not something that is impacted by enterprise, there would not need to be any recalculations or anything. It would just be $300 taken out of the levy cap, which is, yeah, if you look at revenue, it's the last number.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments? Counselor Newton?
I don't know if it's off.
Counselor Newton, okay.
Can I ask the mayor something?
Well, what's the question?
Oh, the question is, so when you say the levy cap, like the last number, are you saying that's the amount that is like excess levy right now, right?
The mayor said yes.
And we're just not like sharing that openly, or?
No, I don't know that we're, what's the question?
I guess I just don't understand why that number isn't on this FY 2027 budget that the people are seeing.
The levy limit.
The amount of the excess levy right now.
Okay.
Because I think it would be reassuring if they knew that amount.
I think,
Auditor, Chair Peak?
yeah, what we have out here is
Yeah.
the appropriation motions that we're having, and I don't know that the mayor has this specific document in front of him. This document does not include the levy cap, but I think the broad point is that a $300 appropriation, like, because we're under the levy cap, like,
Yep.
it wouldn't ultimately it wouldn't require a change in any other item of what we'd be voting on tonight.
Madam President?
Hang on a second. Does that answer your question, Counselor Newton?
It's fine.
Yeah.
May we?
Counselor Kwasinski.
May we ask the auditor that question about process and balancing? That would refer to Counselor Newton's question and the mayor's response.
Auditor Patel, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Great. So there's two parts to this. I think one, please remind folks that some of this will not be, again, decided upon or reconciled until we do the tax rate recap. But do we have, or do you have a general idea of what the levy limit, or how much we are taking of the 6.9, I think that's the question, the $6.9 million?
That was question one, and question two had to do with the $300 transfer.
And and would there be an impact with the $300 transfer?
Or addition.
Or increase to the, back to the line item?
Expense side, the bottom line budget will increase by $300.
Correct.
It has no impact on the enterprise chargeback calculation. And 300 can be adjusted into the local receipt, and we can call it as a balanced budget. It's just a minor adjustment.
And what about the levy?
And what about how much of the $6.9 million of the override would be taken? Estimated?
Hold on. I don't have that number handy, but I can. It would be $5,918,187.44.
Great, thank you.
But I would say, again, these are the draft numbers for the revenue. The biggest player in this number is the new growth and levy limit, not the levy limit, sorry. Overlay amount also gets adjusted, and so does the State House Conference budget is still not out. So all of these numbers can change one way or the other after the actual numbers are in place.
Great, thank you. Does that answer questions?
Yeah.
Yep. Great. Any other comments? Councilor Markey?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to restore the $300 to the licensing stipend.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to restore $300 to the licensing board stipends. Any further discussion? Councilor Schmidt.
Thank you, Madam President. So first off, I'll start by saying open and receptive to making this addition back into the budget. I just wanted to offer a little bit of some of my own thinking as we were having this conversation that I'd like to just take with us moving forward. I felt when this budget line was originally discussed in finance, there was a conversation that took place essentially presenting the cut to this particular position from executive assistant to the mayor was presented as a substantial, reduction to the mayor's office budget line, which certainly it was. We've also heard from the public throughout this process a concern about transparency and the way that this information has been presented. And so when this additional section of the budget was presented as something separate, it kind of was, I don't know if jarring is quite the right word, but jarring to then kind of make the connection in my head that some of the money had essentially been moved from the mayor's budget to the licensing budget. All in all, I take no issue with that necessarily. It especially is useful to me to hear some of the context that has played out over the past decade and to hear the auditor's opinion that was shared with the mayor. I would have liked to have heard some of that at that meeting, but unfortunately, the mayor was not present to provide that information to us. And so a part of my issue was feeling like, and feeling like the money was moved out of the budget to say that money had been saved, but then there was no recognition of the fact that the money was appearing somewhere else in the budget, and that didn't sit right with me. I think moving forward, if this is work that is being done during the workday by a particular position, it makes sense to me that that is something that should be included in the pay that somebody is getting. One of the conversations that came up at our previous finance meeting where this cut was discussed and eventually recommended was the idea that this work is being done, during the day, and there's not a clear distinction of, where the money is being paid from when, especially when that individual is working beyond their allotted hours. And so I don't think that is necessarily fair, and I don't think that this stipend necessarily fixes that particular issue. Which is all just to say, I will likely vote in favor of this amendment, but I think it's something that we need to continue to look at moving forward and to consider, how people are spending their time during their workday, and making sure that if they're getting paid from a particular budget, that is where their time is going, and that these stipends are for time that is being spent above and beyond the normal schedule.
Other comments? Council or Vice President Jadzik?
Thank you. I appreciate the discussion so far. I guess I'll start by just saying I absolutely 100% believe that people should be compensated fairly for the work that they do. Just, full stop. But I do want to note that attending the meeting at which this particular cut had been discussed, I do recall, as Councilor Schmidt just referred to, that there was a lengthy discussion around when is the work getting done. I think it is concerning to me that this work is essentially double counting. And my other concern, or maybe not concern is not the right word, but the other point I'd like to just remind folks is that this licensing stipend work, or the licensing work rather, does not need to be done by the assistant to the mayor. It can be done by anyone. So in that sense, while it has historically been done by the person in this position, even though the position itself has changed at various points in time over the last year, I do think, and there was a point in time, I believe, this year where this licensing work wasn't done by the assistant to the mayor. So I think we can think about them separately and not think about it as, oh, this is work that the assistant should have as part of their job. And I do think there's a larger conversation around this that needs to happen, not all tonight, but in the future. So I'll say that while, again, I do think compensation should be paid out fairly, I'm going to probably vote no, only from a matter of principle, because I don't think that this was laid out in the correct, or maybe not correct way, it's not the right way to put it, but I just think that it's a little bit messy in my sense, and I think that this was discussed at length previously, and I'm a little bit disappointed that a lot of these concerns were not raised initially when the discussion first happened.
Mm-hmm. Councilor, or Chair Peak?
Thank you. This is all interesting. I just want to say that it's my understanding that within government, local government, but also other parts of the government, including my own day job, it's not really particularly unusual for a salaried employee to receive a stipend for additional work that they are performing outside of what was in their job description at the time that they were hired. So I just, I think that, there's all sorts of conversations we could have about what's the best way to set up this position, who should be doing this work, at what time should they be doing this work, what is the actual amount that this work is adequately compensated by. But I think this even came up, to some extent when we were having a lot of these conversations, that there's, like in the schools, for instance, there's plenty of positions that exist that are not like a person. It's that there's a person who's a teacher and they also are the something or other coordinator, and they might receive a small stipend for taking on that additional responsibility on top of their teaching responsibilities. I think there's cases like that in public safety as well with the police. There's liaisons that do these various things, and I don't think in every case they receive a stipend, but if they were to, if there's a, hey, in addition to these responsibilities, I'm going to pick up this project and this project that aren't in my job description, I don't think that it would be seen as unusual, just in terms of making sure that people, it might be in some ways easier in some cases to do that than to renegotiate somebody's job description. It might be easier in some cases, especially if it's something where we don't know that necessarily this is the long-term way that this is going to be structured. This might sometimes be the easier way to do it. So I just don't think that there's anything inherently unusual about this as a process. Whether it's the way that we should do things, I feel like it's not necessarily a question for budget season, in my opinion.
Councilor Schmidt?
Thank you. All fair, totally makes sense to me. I guess my follow-up question would be, are we speaking about a salaried position? I think I may know the answer to that question, but my understanding is no.
Is a stipend position?
No, I mean, when we're talking about, Counselor Peak referenced a salary position getting a
Oh,
stipend.
I see what you're saying, I see what you're saying. Sorry.
And I'm just not sure if that is exactly what we're talking about.
Right.
Right.
Chair Peak.
I don't know, but I don't think that it would necessarily be unusual to do that for an hourly position either. Like, I just think that, if you're picking up a set of responsibilities that are part of the functioning of the city but are not within your existing job description, that this is a thing that happens in government. But if my use of the word salary complicated or confused anything, then I apologize.
Other comments? Chair Kwasinski?
It may make sense to get into the weeds just a little more and say, look at, maybe we really do need at some point a policy to look at, are we talking about salaried positions? Are we talking about non-salaried?
Yeah.
I just would like to put a frame to this that can move us forward.
Okay.
And the frame is, I think we do need that discussion to determine salaried, unsalaried. The example of
Councilor
for
Kwasinski,
example,
we're drifting off topic now, so I just want
I think we're talking about.
No, you're talking about the policy and we're talking about the
So I
amount.
think we do need to be able to set that in order to make good decisions regarding whether or not someone's work should be raised to compensate them within the hours that they're working currently for the city in another job, in another position. If I'm working for the city in another position,
Okay.
should I? Okay.
Great, thank you.
So I am not sure exactly which way I will vote on this yet.
Right. Yep, that's fair. Any other comment? So I'm the one who brought up concerns about the stipend. Specifically, like I said, I'm struggling with the idea of paying someone for work that's being done during the day, given what's going on. Also in regards to Councilor Smith's concern, I have sat and watched the various licensing board meetings, in part because people express concern about a liquor license being withheld. I watched the licensing board try to navigate that. I think that they were looking for information for various items that had not been included. That was a mistake. The licensing board is waiting for meeting minutes. And there was one comment that struck me as a little bit concerning when someone was asking about this particular license. The response from the clerk was related to leadership is basically going in a different direction. So if that clerk is representing leadership, which I assume in that particular context was the mayor, then in my opinion, then that should come from the mayor's budget, because the clerk should be working for the licensing board and providing them support. But what happened was that individual feels like they are actually there to represent the wishes of the mayor. And if they are there to represent the wishes of the mayor, then the mayor's office should, in fact, compensate that particular individual if it's happening during the day when they should be doing their particular work. So that is my personal opinion on the matter. I think that if that individual is going to represent the mayor, then the mayor, in fact, should compensate out of that particular budget, which is for the office manager So to me, it's very confusing of who is that individual clerking for? The other thing I do want to address is that I think over the last couple of years, I think that, and I'm not saying that it is in this particular case, I think that, compensation is happening. I think that we have seen compensation come out of grants that has impacted people's, what's the word I'm looking for? Increases in salary, et cetera. And I think that that's just really concerning to me. And I think that from my particular opinion, I want people to do their job. I want them to do a good job. I want them to be compensated. But I also want there to be clear lines in terms of who they're representing and them completing the job that is in fact laid out and expected of them. I don't want to give just any amount of money because that person is going in and doing X, Y, and Z. I want to know and I want to see that that work is actually being completed. I think that that's a fair request of not just this council, but of taxpayers. So was my particular position on that and why I stated what I stated, why I did. So I like the individual, I want them to be successful, and we have certain delineation of roles that seem to me that are in conflict. But we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so I think we need to do a roll call if we can.
Is it for the salary for licensing?
Correct, yep.
Connie Denham.
No.
Felicia Jadzik.
No.
J.P. Kuzinski.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Tamara Smith.
No.
Jonathan Schmidt.
Aye.
Amanda Newton.
No.
Nathan Markey.
Aye.
4 no. Those are 4 yes.
So motion fails.
Okay. In that case, I'm ready to make that,
Yep.
unless there's any other amendments that anyone's going to propose.
Any other amendments? Nope. Go ahead, please.
Okay, I move that the city vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,462,232.44 for the various departments listed under Section 1, General Government, and that the amounts listed in the mayor's printed report, unless amended, be considered specific appropriations with the following amounts to be transferred as recommended by the mayor and reviewed by the City Council Finance Committee without recommendation. Water Sewer Enterprise, $725,393.02. Parking Fund, $15,000. Overlay, $0.
Second?
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Point of order. I think it would be appropriate to do roll call votes on these.
Can you help me understand your rationale?
It may be required for budgets. I'm not quite sure.
No, it's not required for budgets. I think we've done, just asking for a vote.
I will leave it at.
Okay.
That's fine.
So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Chair Peak.
Okay, so Section 2 is public safety. That's the police, fire, EMT, and dispatch, and also the building inspection services. That amount, the recommended amount is $9,285,369.33. And let's pick up.
Great. Any comment from the public? Seeing none, any comment, just real quick from, not real quick, you can say as much as you want. Any from councilors before we go to the motion? Seeing none, Chair Peak?
Okay, I move that the city vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $9,285,369.33 from the various departments listed under Section 2, Public Safety, and that the amounts listed in the mayor's printed report, unless amended, be considered specific appropriations as recommended by the mayor and reviewed by the City Council Finance Committee.
Second.
Without recommendation?
Should that without recommendation be there? Because we did, or?
We didn't recommend it
Oh, yeah,
last
yes,
night.
that's right, because we need, that's right, so we need to say without recommendation, yep. Okay, but that's what that means, is that,
Yep, great.
I second.
Yep, so I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Chair Peak?
okay, next up is schools. This is obviously a sort of different department from a lot of the others because we do not make line item cuts to the schools. That is the school committee's job. We just tell them the block of money that they have to work with. In this case, the amount that we were looking at was $24,046,000 and $664.66.
Great. Anyone from the public have comment? Any counselors have comment? Seeing none, Counselor Peak? Or Chair Peak?
I move that the city vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $24,046,664.66 from the various departments listed under Section 3, Schools, and that the amounts listed in the mayor's printed report, unless amended, be considered specific appropriations as recommended by the mayor and reviewed by the City Council Finance Committee without recommendation.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes.
Okay, next up we have Public Works, which covers, the Department of Public Works, but not the enterprise side of it. So not water, sewer, wastewater, but everything else, the publics are, highway and whatnot. It also covers the cemetery and the tree warden positions.
Great. Any comment from counselors or questions? Seeing none. Any comment from the public? Seeing none. Chair Peak?
I move that the city vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,510,779.51 for the various departments listed under Section 4, Public Works, and that the amounts listed in the mayor's printed report, unless amended, be considered specific appropriations with the following amounts to be transferred as recommended by the mayor and reviewed by the City Council Finance Committee without recommendation. Water Sewer Enterprise, $891,090.13. Sale of lots, $10,000. Capital stabilization, $132,142.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Counselor Marquis?
Just for clarification, did you mention the general taxation or is that something else? When you read it?
Oh, I'm just reading the motion language as laid out in the
okay,
later
okay.
pages.
This is just for me. Got it.
No, yeah, so that's everything except for the three things that I mentioned. So it's general except for these things.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments from counselors? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Chair Peak?
Okay, Section 5 is Human Services. Human Services includes, I'm really helpful because there's a bunch of these and I always forget one and then I insult somebody. Human Services is the Health Department, the Council on Aging, and Veteran Services. All three of those departments run on $786,233.33 for this coming fiscal year.
Great, thank you. Any comment, questions from counselors? Counselor Smith.
I'd just like to make a comment on this one. I'm glad we didn't see huge cuts to human services because I think that's going to be very important for a lot of people who are really struggling over these next few years, given the general economy. And it would be really easy to cut that, but it would also really be leaving a lot of people who really rely on them, even from Shine at the senior center, for example. So I'm grateful for that. I wanted to acknowledge that.
Great. Any other comment? Okay, yes. Similarly, I think that now more than ever, we have a vulnerable population, and so we're going to rely very heavily on the departments in this area, as well as continuing to provide workshops or presentations and things like that so that people know the available resources out there to them. So I think it's very important that these were continue to be funding adequately. So Chair Peak.
I move that the city vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $786,233.33 for the various departments listed under Section 5, Human Services, and that the amounts listed in the mayor's printed report, unless amended, be considered specific appropriations with the following amounts to be transferred as recommended by the mayor and reviewed by the City Council Finance Committee without recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Chair Peak?
Okay, next up we have Culture and Recreation. So this is the Parks and Recreation Department plus our appropriation each year to the Easthampton Public Library. And that total comes in at $835,581.25. 25 cents.
Great. Any comment from this councilors? Counselor Schmidt?
Thank you, Madam President. I'll just state for the record, as an employee of the library, I will be abstaining on this vote. If there's any significant deliberation, I will leave the room, but until that point, I'll just take that approach.
All right. Just stay there for now. Oh, Counselor Smith?
I'm not abstaining, but I wanted to mention the reason why I'm voting yes for cultural and recreation. I moved to Easthampton in 2007. Directly thereafter was the crash. And as a family who had 4 children under the age of 6, 3 of them needing daycare and not being eligible for any sort of income relief, I can really appreciate how heavy it is to have to be in a place like that with your personal budget. And for my family, that's how we got to really know Easthampton, by all of the offerings that happened across the city, from the library programs that we participated in free in, to the different movie nights, and even Bear Fest that came up during that time. So I really feel like the amount of culture and recreation we were able to receive during an otherwise really difficult, bleak time period. I really have a lot of respect for the people who work in these departments and the experiences that they bring.
Great, thank you. Any other comments from councilors? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, did we not allow?
In fact, I don't think I made a.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But I guess I tipped my hat.
Right. Sorry, that's my, any comment from the public? Great, seeing none, Chair Peak, apologies.
I move that the city vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $835,581.25 for the various departments listed under Section 6, Cultural and Recreation, and that the amounts listed in the mayor's printed report, unless amended, be considered specific appropriations as recommended by the mayor and reviewed by the City Council Finance Committee without recommendation.
Second. Oh, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention?
Abstain.
One abstention. Motion passes. Chair Peak.
Okay, next up is section 7, debt and interest. We gotta pay our debts or we get in trouble.
Thank you very much.
There's, for our debt and interest, we've got about $5.5 million, with some of it coming from various premiums and stabilization, and also from the diff debt. So there's a good deal there.
Great. Any questions, comments from counselors? Seeing none. Any comments from the public? Seeing none. Chair Peak.
I move the city vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,547,923.82 for the various departments listed under Section 7, debt and interest, and that the amounts listed in the mayor's printed report, unless amended, be considered specific appropriations, with the following amounts to be transferred or raised as recommended by the mayor and reviewed by the City Council Finance Committee without recommendation. Water Sewer Enterprise, $300,797.97. Debt exclusion taxation to be reduced by reserves for amortization, $3,310. Debt exclusion Maple School K-8 premium, $63,469.13. HVAC debt premium, $11,016.93. Tax rate stabilization, $186,000. District Improvement Fund debt, $67,666.67.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Counselor Kwasinski?
The public?
We already asked the
She
public.
did that. All right. Sorry,
Sorry.
between the public and this,
Yeah.
I wanted to be sure.
Yep, no, I understand. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Chair Peak.
Okay, next up is Section 8, unclassified, which is employee benefits. We all know that these have been a major driver of cost this year. They're coming in at $14.5 million, and of that, part of it's going to come from Water and Sewer Enterprises, previously discussed from chargeback.
Any questions from counselors? Any questions, comments from the public? Seeing none, Chair Peak.
Okay, I move that the city vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $14,502,761.72 for the various departments listed under Section 8, employee benefits, and that the amounts listed in the mayor's printed report, unless amended, be considered specific appropriations, with the following amounts to be transferred as recommended by the mayor and reviewed by the City Council Finance Committee without recommendation. Water Sewer Enterprise, $756,279.17. General stabilization, $0.
Second.
It's a race. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Chair Peak.
Okay, next up, we have Section 9, community preservation. This is the amount that we're appropriating from the CPA surcharge to fund the CPA committee, which does a bunch of great stuff. This year, it would be $854,700.
Any comments, questions from counselors? Any comments, questions from the public? Seeing none, Chair Peak.
I move that the city vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $854,700 for the various departments listed under Section 9, Community Preservation, and that the amounts listed in the mayor's printed report, unless amended, be considered specific appropriations, with the total amount to be raised and appropriated from the Community Preservation Fund as recommended by the mayor and reviewed by the City Council Finance Committee without recommendations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Chair Peak.
Section 10, Enterprise is up next, so this is all the water, sewer, wastewater work. Again, this is not funded by property taxes or the other things that are general government. It's almost like a business run within the city that's funded largely through water and sewer rates. So this year it would be $3,465,883.75.
Great. Any questions, comments from counselors? Seeing none. Any comments, questions from the public? Seeing none. Chair Peak.
I move that the city vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,465,883.75 for the various departments listed under Section 10 Enterprise, and that the amount listed in the mayor's printed report, unless amended, be considered specific appropriations, with the following amounts to be transferred as recommended by the mayor and reviewed by the City Council Finance Committee without recommendation. Water Sewer Enterprise, $3,465,883.75.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Sorry.
Abstentions? Motion passes. Chair Peak.
Okay, and finally, every year as part of the budget, we have to put a cap on the revolving fund for the electric vehicle charging stations and the bike share program. So these are revolving funds. We get money in, but we have to put a cap on it for reasons that have been explained to me in the past, and I still don't feel like I fully understand it, but it is something that we have to do as part of this, is to basically cap the size of that fund.
Any questions from councilors, or comments? Seeing none. Any comment from the public? Seeing none. Chair Peak.
I move the city council cap the DPW revolving fund spending for electric vehicle charging stations and the bike share programs at $20,000 for fiscal year 2027 as per Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes.
Budget.
That's the budget. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everyone who participated. I do want to, before I take a motion to close, I just want to acknowledge how challenging this process has been this year. Obviously, there was a lot of unknowns, which led to the council receiving the budget later than usual. We've already hashed out why that is, et cetera. But, I want to, acknowledge the Finance Committee and all the counselors who participated in those meetings. They were obviously quite lengthy. And so I appreciate that. I also want to acknowledge the members of the community who participated. I think that, just given the nature of what has been going on nationally and certainly what's been going on locally, I have appreciated the level of participation and certainly the questions and the encouragement of this council digging deeper into addressing some of these concerns. And so that certainly has not been lost on me. And so certainly I will, as we move forward, continue to ask, the important questions that we need to ask in regards to city finances. I also want to take a moment to speak to our department heads. I know that this obviously has been incredibly challenging. The fact that you all put in the amount of time to put together 3 different budgets, I think is unheard of. I don't know that anyone has had to do that in the past, certainly not within this community. And I also want to acknowledge the amount of care that you took to be able to continue to do the work that you do for this city and be able to provide the high level of service that you do to our residents and being accessible to them. And so, I also want to acknowledge that. I know that you all did present to council 2 budgets. And obviously I don't think are out of the woods yet. So I really encourage department heads to continue to find ways of saving funds and figuring out a way for us to continue to move through this particular financial situation that we are in. But your commitment and your dedication to this community know that you are all very much appreciated. And that's without question. I also want to speak directly to the mayor. As I just said, we are not out of the woods at this particular time, and it is incumbent upon you to work closely with your department heads to solve the problems that we're in. I know that you have had limited department head meetings, and I strongly encourage you to have more of those. I hope they are informative. I hope that questions are asked, solutions are provided, but there is a rich and long dialogue that takes place in the conference room that allows department heads to be able to speak freely, speak openly, in a group, to be able to bounce ideas off of each other and solve the problems that we are facing within our community. I don't think that our problems are solved in a corner office, just like not all of them are solved in this particular room, right? But we do the best that we can. But your department heads are the experts in their fields. They're the experts around the various issues that we are trying to solve. And we need to come together to figure out and to brainstorm how we are going to bring some of these costs down. I think what the council did today was an effort to give some breathing room to be able to solve some of those problems. But I also know, right, the budget that we are putting forward is going to be challenging for some of our residents. And we have to do everything that we can in order to continue to bring some of those costs down, because I am very, very concerned about our residents and their ability to stay here. There's no other place for people to go. And I think that, because this is happening in every community, and so we really have to be able to try to solve those problems to help people to be able to stay here. But we have to do that together, right? So I appreciate all of you. I appreciate your involvement. And I will take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Thank you so much. I will now open it up to public speak. Obviously, we started the public hearing immediately, but I will take comment from the public for anything that is not related to the budget. You will have 3 minutes. I'm sorry, not related to the public hearing. You will have 3 minutes. Again, just as a reminder, when there's 30 seconds remaining, you will hear an alert, and when your time is up, you will hear a second alert. And at that time, please kind of wrap up your last thoughts. And so please state your name and address for the record. And I know you know the routine, but.
Kathy Wazinski, Overlook Drive. I wanted to highlight for the people watching that was probably not clear from all of the deliberation recently happening, that the city budget is $65,350,000 and more than that. That's a huge amount of money, and I don't think that's made clear to the residents. And I think you noticed the drop-off in the public speak during that hearing. There's no point. No one's really listening, and that's why we're here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public speak? Again, please state your name and address for the record.
Mike Caribou, Line Street. As the gentleman who spoke earlier, the city is reducing people. It's reducing students. And as I said at an earlier council meeting, the only thing growing in the city of Easthampton is the budget. It's not the revenue. It's not people coming into town. It's not more students. It's government. Your responsibility is to cut government. Because then people look at the property taxes that they have to pay to move here. They're moving somewhere else. They'll go south. Because, Florida does it. There's a lot of states down south that do it. You're talking $65 million in a town the size of Easthampton. So again, I reiterate, the only thing growing in Easthampton is government, and that needs to stop because the citizens can't afford to give you any more.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Miriam Ansara, 359 Main Street, Unit 2A. I appreciate the job that the mayor has done, all the department heads have done, that the city council has done. I think that there's a reason that Easthampton, like 57 other cities and towns in this state alone, have had to take on the hard work of coming up with an override. And I would say that it's like watching people blaming government and blaming us and trying to say where we can take costs and where we can make costs. It's like people eating their young. This is not something that we can solve in the city. All our money is being sucked out of us by those vampires in the corporate dens, where our salaries buy less and less, where cities get less and less money to have to do more and more, where cities like ours can rely only on property taxes. That's outrageous that there's nothing other than property taxes for a city to be able to run schools, fix roads, and do everything else it has to do. And by sitting around and blaming government, local government, over and over and over, we are ignoring the fact of what's really happening in this country at more than the municipal level and more than even the state level. I'm old enough at 82 to remember when people had secure jobs, when a home was a place to live, not your only asset, where people had real pensions, where there were strong unions, and where there was government at all levels, that at least 2/3 of it answered to the people. I will just tell you a single fact, if I have enough time to. So the largest single employer in this country is also the largest single employer of people who receive food stamps. That's Walmart's. So in other words, we pay taxes at the federal level that subsidizes Walmart so that they don't have to pay living wage. Now, transpose that to our situation. We cannot do better than we're doing because we are stuck in a situation where this country is the people of this country are being bled dry. They're being bled dry by all our money being siphoned off into these stupid, costly wars every place else. They're being bled dry by corporations that put their own profits ahead of their employees and ahead of us. And this has got to stop, and we have to stop just blaming city council, mayor, departments for doing the very best they can in a terrible, terrible situation.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Yep. Please state your name and address for the record.
Jess Atkins Barber, 22 Vadnais Street. I just want to thank all the city council members, all the school committee members, all the city officials, all the really everyone who's had an involvement in this budget season. It's been a very long and difficult budget season. These meetings have often gone over 4 hours. I mean, I can barely stay coherent and listening for 4 hours. So huge applause to y'all for doing that. But I mean, there's a lot of work to come. We've done a lot of work already to get to this point. Everyone's made themselves incredibly available on social media or on their email. And I'm very impressed by that. We're a very small city with a big heart. I think that, I just want to applaud all the city officials because I think they've done an amazing job through this budget hearing and all of you, or budget hearing and budget season. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room who would like to make a comment? Seeing none. Anyone online, would they like to make a comment? Seeing none. We have a city council resolution opposing a proposed cell phone tower at 1 Cook Road, Southampton. I will turn it over to Councilor Smith. I will turn it over to Councilor Kwasinski.
Thank you. The matter was refers to the Rules and Government Relations Committee, which met on Monday and was joined by Councilor Smith. And we discussed the matter, revised the language, and I think, to summarize it, as I understand the matter, it's really an issue of equity. It's based on a long history of mutual shared concern for one another in times of political strife and political division. We have before us an opportunity to help, I think, our neighbors and ourselves bring healing and support to one another. The matter is where the town of Southampton is considering the request of a developer to place a cell tower smack dab on Easthampton's border. That cell tower would be subject to the regulations of the town of Southampton. And we've noted at the committee meeting that many times we've helped Southampton. We have a shared mutual respect. And in fact, in the last year, when a 200 megawatt facility was proposed on Southampton's southern border by a neighboring community, namely Westfield, we joined with Southampton and helped to defeat that measure. So they were threatened, we came to their defense. And I am asking that we ask the town of Southampton to give equal and due consideration regarding their zoning regulations for the residents, not only of their community, but those of the city of Easthampton, those across the border who will look at the cell tower and be impacted by the cell tower, whose investments in homes are next to the cell tower. And I believe the language that we developed reflects that. This measure was recommended 2-0 by the councilors, with one member being absent. So with that recommendation, I would like to ask and invite the counselor from Precinct 5 to read the measure and make any comments that she may have.
Counselor Smith.
Okay, this is Easthampton City Council resolution opposing the proposed cell tower at 1 Cook Road, Southampton, Massachusetts. Whereas Easthampton and Southampton have a relationship built on reciprocity and respect, sharing emergency services, mutual aid, water, and sewer resources. Whereas Easthampton advocated on behalf of Southampton when the city of Westfield proposed erecting a lithium battery energy system on Southampton's border, citing that the facility would lower the value of Southampton homes and put Southampton residents at risk. Whereas a telecommunications company has proposed the construction of a cellular communications tower at 1 Cook Road in Southampton, Massachusetts, directly on Easthampton's border, and whereas the proposed tower would be located immediately adjacent to established residential neighborhoods in Easthampton, placing a large industrial telecommunications structure within direct view of numerous homes and families. And whereas the residents most significantly affected by this proposal are not solely Southampton residents, but also many Easthampton residents whose homes lie within close proximity to the proposed site and who would bear the visual, economic, and quality of life impacts of the project despite having no vote in Southampton's municipal decisions. And whereas homeowners in the surrounding neighborhoods have invested their life savings, time, and labor into purchasing and maintaining their homes with the reasonable expectation that the character of their residential community would be protected from incompatible industrial development. And whereas the proposed tower would permanently alter the landscape of the area, introducing a highly visible commercial structure that would dominate views from homes, yards, streets, and public spaces throughout the surrounding neighborhoods. Whereas studies and market analyses have documented concerns regarding diminished property desirability and potential reductions in residential property values associated with the proximity of large telecommunications towers. And whereas some residents have raised earnest concerns regarding the long-term effects of radio frequency emissions and believe that public officials should exercise caution when approving infrastructure projects located in close proximity to family homes and children. And whereas residents support reliable cellular service and recognize the importance of telecommunications infrastructure, but strongly reject the false choice between improved service and protecting residential neighborhoods. And whereas no compelling evidence has been presented demonstrating that this specific location is the only feasible location available within Southampton, or that less intrusive alternatives have been fully exhausted. And whereas the burden of this project falls overwhelmingly on nearby residents, while the financial benefits accrue primarily to private corporations and property owners involved in the lease arrangement. And whereas the approval of this proposal would create a precedent that places private corporate interests above the preservation of our Easthampton residential charm, property rights, and community well-being. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Easthampton City Council opposes the construction of the proposed cellular communications tower at 1 Cook Road until additional consideration is made for alternate sites and more information is made available to the impacted residents in the surrounding neighborhoods. Be it further resolved that the Easthampton City Council respectfully requests that the Southampton Planning Board require the applicant Let me start that over again. Be it further resolved that the Easthampton City Council respectfully requests that the Southampton Planning Board require the applicant to demonstrate through independent and objective analysis that no alternative locations exist and would result in less harm to surrounding residential neighborhoods. Be it further resolved that the planning board gives substantial weight to the testimony of affected residents whose homes, property values, daily views, and quality of life would be directly impacted by this proposal. Be it further resolved that the Easthampton City Councilors publicly advocate for the interests of affected residents and ensure that municipal decisions do not unfairly impose economic and aesthetic burdens on neighboring communities. Be it further resolved that no approval be granted until a comprehensive review of alternative sites, co-location opportunities, visual impacts, property value impacts, and neighborhood effects have been completed and made available for public review. Be it further resolved that the Easthampton City Council respectfully urges the Southampton Planning Board to preserve the residential aesthetic of our neighborhoods, protect the value of our homes, respect the voices of affected families, and reject the proposed cell phone tower at One Cook Road until all alternatives are considered in good faith. Be it finally resolved that the Easthampton City Council implores Mayor Derby to contact the town administrator, town clerk, and select board members of Southampton requesting that a different cell tower location be considered. The residents of Easthampton and Southampton deserve reliable cellular service. They also deserve solutions that do not place massive industrial structure directly across from homes, disrupt the predominant land use of established neighborhoods, or force residents to bear the cost of a project from which they receive little benefit. We respectfully ask the Southampton Planning Board to deny this proposal and require the exploration of more appropriate alternatives.
That was in the form of a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. A motion and a second for the Easthampton City Council resolution opposing the proposed cell tower at One Cook Road, Southampton. Any further discussion? Chair Peak, or Councilor
Chair
Peak.
here.
I didn't say mayor.
Yeah. So first of all, I feel like I owe Councilor Smith and Rules a little bit of an apology because I asked that this go to committee and then was not present at that committee hearing. Something came up I wasn't able to get out of. I'm broadly comfortable with this. I think that, I do think that it's important that we make sure that everyone remember that these things do have impacts that might not affect citizens of that town, but when you're placing something right on the border like that, these people need to be, make sure they're listening to how this might affect people across the border. Because we do have, our fates are very much intertwined. There's one clause from this that I'm a bit sensitive to, and I think if we would consider striking it, then I could vote for this, but otherwise I'm not sure. It's the one about,
If you were to count down, where is it? It's on the first page, second page?
it's on the second page, well, so the second side of the first page, I
Yeah.
guess, where it says, some residents have raised earnest concerns regarding the long-term effects of radio frequency emissions and believe that public officials should exercise caution when approving infrastructure projects located in close proximity to family homes and children. My concern is that, to the best of my knowledge, there really isn't any documented health concerns. I did look around for a little while about this, and I did some reading on this. In particular, I looked over one report from the American Cancer Society to that effect that said that there really is no evidence that these sorts of things actually cause cancer or anything like that, or that the existence of these towers is really substantially any different from holding your cell phone next to your head all day, like we all do. That doesn't mean that these other questions about who should have a say in these sorts of things when something's placed right on the border, or about how these might affect property value, are not legitimate things that need to be heard. It's just, I guess, I feel I'm really sensitive to this kind of stuff after COVID. I don't doubt that there are people who have these concerns, but I'm wary about including them in an official council communication, because there's a lot of people who have earnest concerns about things that have no basis in science. And if we start saying that the government should be responsive to that, I worry about where that leads us. So that is, I just want to say that that one clause, I think, just particularly in the way that my mind has been sort of trained to think about this stuff over the last few years, it kind of troubles me. But if this were amended to strike that one clause, I would be willing to support it.
Councilor Markey?
Councilor Peak raises an interesting point, but that's not the reason I'm to comment. My comment is actually it's more of a question. If City Council does pass this resolution, I believe somebody can correct me. Is the Southampton meeting, is that tomorrow evening?
No, this discussion for this item on the Southampton Planning Board agenda is scheduled for July 8th at 7 p.m.
Okay, so if this resolution passes, are there going to be a city councilor or a couple willing to go to Southampton and read this document into record? Okay, I got my answer. But I do agree with Tom that perhaps without documented proof that cell towers do cause harm, physical harm. I will vote on this regardless, but I do agree that that is treading into territory that might be. That's it.
Chair Kwasinski?
I can appreciate Councilor Peak's perspective and not being prepared with RF frequency information and studies. I think we would want to present as strong a case to Southampton as possible. And I think without that information, I don't think the balance of our document is reduced significantly in its impact by removing that clause. So I would be in favor of removing the clause and simply in favor of asking Southampton to give the same due consideration to our citizens that they give to their residents and ask that the same level of treatment occur fairly. And I think that's the impact. And they should consider all alternatives, site locations that make sense near and far. So with that, I would support an amendment.
Councilor Schmidt?
Thank you. I would just echo the appreciation for the perspective that Councilor Peak has brought forward. I do fear sort of a slippery slope sometimes when we start talking about some of these things. But what I did want to say that's a little bit different is that I do feel like the second half of this particular clause does still stand when we think about infrastructure projects in general. I can think of a number of instances where those things could legitimately have a impact on the well-being of people nearby. And I do think it, the statement that public officials should exercise caution when approving infrastructure projects located near families and homes on its own, that I 100% agree with. But could, for the sake of this conversation, I think I also agree that striking this particular clause doesn't detract from the overall argument and could see that as a path forward.
Any other comments? Chair, or Councilor Peak, Chair Schmidt has an alternative proposal. Is that something you're amenable to, or do you have comment about that?
I'd be comfortable just striking that part. I just was curious if there was a response from yourself or Councilor Smith for, the authors. I was just curious if there's a perspective that I was missing.
Yep. Councilor Smith?
I can speak to the perspective of the families that I spoke to and their fear that there is something that physically could happen even with those studies, is why I included it. But I agree that we have enough other things that would back up our reason for creating this resolution that I would be okay with not having that part too.
And I think in my conversations with them, I think it was equal, that was something, not only is it kind of an ungodly site, kind of outside of their home, I think they have small children, and obviously, I think there's a lot of unknowns. And I think that they just articulated real concern about that. And so I think the way that it is written here, it just acknowledges that concerns are raised, right? But understand the points. So if you would like to make an amendment, we can go ahead and move forward with that.
Sure, I would make a motion to amend the second clause on page 2 to read, whereas some residents believe that public officials should exercise caution when approving infrastructure projects located in close proximity to family homes and children, semicolon, and.
Second. Okay, great. So we have a motion and a second to amend the second clause on page 2. Any further discussion? Councilor Schmidt?
Thank you. I could make this in the, basically I just want to see what people think about, I feel like continuing to say some residents believe that public officials should do this actually does kind of undermine it in that particular case. And I wonder if there would be, if folks would be receptive to just cutting out from the end of whereas to the beginning of public officials, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I was just going to ask if the counselor was suggesting an amendment to that effect to the amendment.
So you want to make an amendment?
Should I make an amendment to the amendment?
Yep.
I would like to make a motion to amend the amendment to further cut the language, some residents believe that.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to make an amendment so that it reads whereas public officials should exercise caution when approving infrastructure projects located in proximity to family homes and children, semicolon, and. All right, so we have a motion and a second again. Any further discussion on the amendment?
To the amendment.
All right, the second amendment. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passes. Back to the other amendments, which is now taken care of. So now we're back to the main motion. So any other comments or question, discussion? All right. Seeing none, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passes. So I know that I intend to participate or attend the, planning board meeting in Southampton. It looks like Councilor Kozinski is as well, and Councilor Smith. So this will be delivered, and I'll work with Mary Ann to make that amendment to this. Great.
Madam President?
Chair Kwasinski.
Were you planning on voting on the resolution itself?
We did.
We voted on the amendments to the resolution and the amendment to the amendment.
No, we did.
No, we didn't.
We voted on the resolution itself.
We voted. It started with the resolution, and then we made
the amendments.
in the discussion.
And
We made a second amendment, but we passed
I
the first.
had thought that we were voting on the amendments to the amendment, and then we would vote on the full resolution.
We did.
But just want to be sure we're all in agreement.
Yep.
Good, thank you.
Awesome. Yep. Great, so that takes care of that. Thank you so much, Councilor Smith, for addressing the needs of your constituents. We have a couple of items that need to be moved to committee, so I will turn it over to Vice President Jadzik.
Thank you. Our first item is a request from Eversource to set a public hearing for permission to install one jointly owned 35-foot utility pole which will extend facilities to the new home at 32 Nipfer Avenue. And I'd like to make a motion to send this to the property committee and also set a public hearing at 6:15 p.m. on July 15th in these chambers.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to move the item, request from Eversource to set a public hearing to install one jointly owned 35-foot utility pole and set a to property and to set a public hearing on July 15th at 6:15 in these chambers. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passes.
Great. Second item is another request from Eversource to set a public hearing for permission to install one solely owned pole along Greenwood Court to provide electrical service to 20 Greenwood Court. And I'd like to make a motion to send this to property and at the same time set a public hearing for July 15th at 6:15 p.m. in these chambers.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for a request from Eversource to install a pole along Green Court Avenue to property and set a public hearing for July 15th at 6:15 in these chambers. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passes. That's everything on our agenda. I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
The way it printed out, I couldn't, there's 3 lines in the rest of the
Oh,
text.
that's okay. Do we have to sign anything for the budget?
But I thought